Hello everyone. How are you doing today? Welcome to yet another exciting sessions. Well, have you ever looked at the SORA approval process and felt like you are assembling a complex puzzle, unsure where to start or how to fit pieces together? Well, you are in the right place today because today we are tackling not so glamorous but so crucial part of drone operation, securing your SORA approvals for BVLOS operation. Let's picture this now. Your drone operations is all set to go, a good setup that could win awards. But then the SORA approval process looms large. Everything seems way too overwhelming with its detailed checklist, risk assessments, compliance hurdles. It feels like you are staring at a never ending to do list, but we are breaking it down into actionable and manageable steps for you. In short, this session will help you turn where do I start to what's next. So please welcome our speakers for today. First up, we have Mark. Welcome, Mark.
Good morning.
Yes. So, Mark Veteran is the CEO and co-founder of EU DronePort. With a BSc and MSc in aerospace engineering, Mark has co-founded two successful startups along with bring a wealth of experience, having worked on drone engineering in the Canadian Center for Aerospace Research and with the German Aerospace Center in collaboration with NASA. His expertise has taken him across the globe as a keynote speaker, from the European Space Agency Congress in Italian to the commercial UAV Expo that we all know every year that happens in Vegas, and to the German 4,000 people from 10 plus nationalities and have been featured in major media outlets like BBC, The Guardians, etc. Mark is also a very proud recipient of the Drone Innovation Award, solidifying his place as a true leader in the industry. We are so glad to have you on board, Mark.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.
Yes. Next up, we have Judith Fernandez Lopez. She's the flight permit executive at the EU DronePort. Judith is an aeronautical manager and an expert in SORA risk assessment, specializing in managing flight permits, complex authorizations for drone operations, ranging from simplest to the most complex ones. She collaborates directly with aviation authorities and airspace stakeholders to ensure full regulatory compliance, enabling the safe and efficient execution of flight operation projects. Welcome on board, Judith.
Thank you so much. Welcome here.
Yes. And finally, last but clearly not the least, we have our very own Sejal Saxena, the product management associate at Flightbase. This trio that's gonna break down the entire SORA process step by step for you. Welcome on board, Sejal.
Hi everyone, glad to be here.
Perfect. So before we dive in, here are some housekeeping rules. Okay, so first, please grab some beverages while I take you over to some housekeeping rules. First of all, please feel free to fire off any questions during the presentation by simply typing them in the Q&A box. Our speakers will address it towards the end of the session. The webinar is being recorded, so if your friends or colleagues missed it, don't worry, they can catch it later online on LinkedIn and YouTube. And if you're facing any bandwidth issues, don't worry, we got you covered there itself. We are also streaming the event live on YouTube and LinkedIn, so you can go and watch there. Okay, so lastly, let's make this fun. Tell us in the chat box, where are you tuning in from? And what's in your cup today? Well, I'm sipping my favorite cup of coffee to share stuff. What about you? All right, without further ado, let's dive in. Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Ayushi. I'm going to start sharing screen.
Yeah, perfect.
All clear. So thanks again, Ayushi, for the presentation, the whole Flightbase team. Thank you very much for having us. It's a pleasure being here. In order to get to know a little bit more the audience, I'd like to ask some questions that you can answer here on the poll. First question is, in which region do you operate drones? Please feel free to answer this question on the right-hand side of the screen. We're going to give 20 to 30 seconds to answer this. We're seeing 10 votes for Europe, 2 for America, 3 for America. France, we're seeing the Netherlands, Germany, Poland. All right, thanks a lot. This continues to raise. We've got 2 people from Asia, 1 from Oceania. All right, thank you. Let's close it. Let's move to the next question. Have you acquired any drone dogs yet? Answer 1, not yet, but we plan to acquire 1 soon. 2, we are already operating it. And we haven't acquired any so far. Okay, I'm seeing people here that didn't acquire anything so far, people that are planning to acquire 1 soon. All right. More people planning to operating it soon. Thanks a lot. And let's move to the last question. Are you legally authorized to operate drone dogs platforms in Europe? Answer 1 is yes, fully approved and operational. 2, in the process of getting an approval. And 3, no, we're not operating it in Europe. I see 2 people answer that they are already authorized by any CAA in Europe. 4 people in the process, 6 people in the process of getting 1 approval. 6 people not operating in Europe yet. Let's give 10 more seconds before we close this. All right, so I see that there's more people in the process of obtaining 1 than all the other options. We can close this. Thanks for participating. Now, let's give some context about the European regulation evolution. So, what happened before 2019? Before 2019, we had certain technologies that had been evolving fast within the past years. These technologies allowed the creation of nice drone products. However, operators were not purchasing these products because of the lack of regulation. So the lack of regulation was acting as a bottleneck for the whole industry, and the whole industry couldn't unleash its whole potential. But then everything changed in 2019 when 2 new regulations came into force. We had the delegated regulation 2019/945 and the implementing regulation 947. These 2 regulations are very long and complex, but if we had to summarize them in 2 sentences, I would say that 1, they harmonize or unify all regulations of the EU member states, and 2, they define flight scenarios and classes according to the risk of the operation. But you might be wondering why there's the need of creating scenarios, flight scenarios for drones, right? Well, because scenarios is something that works very well for organizing potentially chaotic environments. And let's take an example of cities in the world. At the beginning, cities were an agglomeration of people and infrastructure all together until somebody came up with the idea of creating scenarios. 1 scenario would be streets, bicycle lanes, bus lanes, highways. These are ways to organize a little bit cities in that case. If we translate this into the drone industry, we'll see that we have organized the flight scenarios based on these names: A1, A2, A3 for the open category, STS1 and STS2 for the specific category. Now, once you've got the scenario created, the next step is to define which user will occupy each of these scenarios. In the case of in the example of the city, it's clear, it's easy. The bikes are the only users allowed to travel in the bicycle lanes, the buses in the bus lanes, and the cars in the highway, as a simplification. But in the drone industry, we choose C0 drones and C1 drones as the only users of the A1 subcategory, C2 for the A2. All drones can fly in the A3. only C5 drones can fly in STS-01, and only C6 drones can fly in STS-02. Now, you might be wondering, what happens with all the operations that don't fall into the requirements of these subcategories, right? What happens if your operation doesn't fall into these 5 scenarios that are published by EASA? For example, we've got here 8 types of operations, but we've got many more that do not fall under these requirements. Drone shows is first. There's no fit into these scenarios. Drone delivery hasn't got any fit yet. Drone in a box, the topic that we're covering today, same. Drone spraying in agriculture, non-certified drones, heavy lifter drones, drones that want to fly higher than 120 meters, or drones that want to fly over concentration of people. So again, as I was saying, if we have a look at this, we say there's no legal way in which this concept of operations can be fit into these scenarios. But people tend to think that the specific category only includes STS-1 and STS-2, when this is not true. Specific category is much bigger and can cope with many other applications. But this case, we have to do it through an operational authorization. Please note that the STS-1 and STS-2 don't require any authorization by the authorities. It's a declaration process, as you can see here. You just declare that you're going to fly under a concrete concept of operations. But if you don't meet these requirements, you have to create your own concept of operations. You have to present all this documentation to the Civilian Aviation Authority, and they should issue an approval or a rejection of this application. Let's know a little bit more in detail how this operational authorization process works. Judith, all yours.
So what is SORA? SORA is the methodology used to evaluate the risk of these operations, those that cannot fit in the open category or the standard scenario. So SORA determines the level of risk. It determines a SAIL number. This SAIL number stands for Specific Assurance Integrity Level, and it is a combination of 2 risks, the ground risk and the air risk. Ground risk, for example, if the drone falls, it might cause damage to people, to trees, to buildings. And we have to consider also the air risk. If the drone is flying, it can encounter any airplane or any other user in their airspace. So firstly, we need to calculate this initial risk. EASA provides some tables to calculate this, and according to the characteristics of the drone operation. So SORA consists of first analyzing all the potential risk of the operation, and in order to provide assurance and trust to authority to get approval, we need to also provide a list of evidences that you, as the operator, keep in mind all these considerations of risk, and you need to provide these evidences to demonstrate that you can reduce and mitigate those risks. These evidences are called mitigations. And next, I will provide some examples. First, for the ground risk, for example, if you're flying in an urban area and your flight of the drone is in an emergency mode and it's going to crash to some school or some building around, you need to provide, for example, an FTS system so you can shut down the flight and you can organize a safe landing of it. Another example might be the application of the parachute so that you can organize the landing in a safe way so you can reduce the impact on the ground. And another example could be to control the ground area, means to provide any fences or any type of characteristics to the operation so you can prevent other people to be in a flight zone. Apart from that, we need to consider the air risk. It is first, we need to define the strategic ones. We have 2 types. the ones that are prior to the operation that you need to consider to create coordination with third parties, other people that might be flying at that time, and also to do so, we could publish a NOTAM so others know about your operation, or for example, to reduce exposure time. And on the other hand, we need tactical mitigations. These mitigations are evidences that need to be defined during the operations. For instance, if you're flying and there's an airplane coming by, you need a transponder so they know about your operation. Or you need to, another example would be to plan a detect and avoid strategy, where all the trainings and the pilots need to be known how to operate in case of emergency. With all this, given this risk, we should reduce the initial risk, one or two levels of the initial sail level. Exactly for the dock operations, we normally start with an initial sail level of 3. And with all these examples of air and ground mitigation, we should reduce it to sail 2. Sail 2 is the level that the authority needs to get so they can trust in your operations and be assured that you will conduct everything in a safe way. Apart from that, you need to, once you get this sail, you need to provide some evidences of safety objectives. You need to respond to some technical aspects and operational to justify that you can conduct the operation safely. Another aspect important according to these operations is that sometimes in my previous experience with docks, a client wanted to fly docks anywhere in the country for securing some installations and other lineal planes. And they were figuring out how the authority will approve this. Firstly, it is really rare or not likely that if you are starting, you can get a generic one. Means you cannot maybe at first get approval for a generic location, I mean all in different locations with the same characteristics. So for that, it is more likely and you provide more trust if you start with a specific location. And after that, you can go and show trust to authority to get the generic one. Another aspect that we are working is that since 2020, EASA has published different bid arrays. This is exactly like SORA, but fast track. It is something within a standard scenario and a SORA. Here is a list of published bid arrays. The first two you can see are based on a standard scenario. They are with the similar characteristics of the operation, but it gives more flexibility in order to apply drone. It doesn't require the certification or any MTOM limitation. And other examples that are shown here that can be applied to long range operation, cargo, and others. So this bid array is faster and another version of a SORA that gets an approval more easily and faster.
So thanks, Judith. I would say that to the audience that at the EU Drone Port, we're used to handling these SORA approvals fast. We've got a lot of experience in that. We have accomplished more than 50 approvals in practically all EU member states. And regarding many different topics, we had approvals regarding more than 1,000 drone swarms in controlled airspace, drones that are over 150 kilograms for docks. Obviously, that's the most the hot topic right now. For tethered drones, for long-range BVLOS, or drones flying over 120 meters. That's it regarding the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, we're going to be happy to go over the Q&A after all. So Ayushi, the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Perfect. That was a really nice presentation. Sejal, over to you now. Can you go ahead and share what offerings we offer from FlightBase and how can we help enable this process?
Yeah, exactly. Just give me a minute. Let me share my screen. Okay, so I hope my screen is visible. Can someone confirm if the screen is visible?
It is working.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So, hi everyone. I'm Sejal Saxena. I'm part of the product management team here at FlightBase. So, I come from an engineering background and I'm really passionate about robotics. So, I've spent a lot of time solving many interesting problems. I especially enjoy solving challenges where we have to build systems that are safe at scale. So, Mark and Judith here mentioned a lot about SORA. They presented all the what are all the classes are, what all we have to take factor in to apply for approvals. And I'm pretty sure you all must be like, oh, that is such a big process. So FlightBase is a drone autonomy platform which is committed to flight safety. And in this presentation, I'll talk with you about how with FlightBase, our operators can do their BVLOS operations without worrying about their flight safety. So when it comes to conducting operations BVLOS, there are basically 4 domains that we have to take care of. So first is mitigating the ground risk, then the air risk, then containment, and finally alert and logging systems. So we'll go at each of them in detail. So coming to the mitigating ground risk part, so like Judith mentioned, it's extremely important for us to ensure that our operations don't possess any risk to any uninvolved personnel at the ground. That's why a lot of regulatory bodies require our operators to define an operational volume from where they can define their flight area. So our users basically can build it using the geofences. So geofences are virtual perimeters that the operators can define, and that would be the flight area in which the drone has to conduct the flights. Now, within that geofence, there might still be certain areas where the operator might not want the drone to go. For example, there might be some dead spots where the drone RF range is very low. In that scenario, our operators can basically demarcate those areas by creating no-fly zones. So when the operators have created no-fly zones, the drone does smart path planning around the drone no-fly zones and avoid those dangerous spots. So, but now just mitigating ground risk is not enough, right? Like Judith mentioned, we also have to mitigate air risks. That is, we have to ensure that no third-party aircraft is at risk when we are conducting our operations. So that's why FlightBase has partnered with a lot of DA integrators. So we have partnered with D-Drones, we have partners with UAVionic, we have partnered with Senhive. So detect and avoid systems, they offer a wide range of sensors, ranging from radar to cameras that have been trained on deep learning models, which can identify cooperative and non-cooperative aircraft at space. So when you integrate these sensors with FlightBase, our users are able to see all the threats that are there in the airspace, and they are able to get alerts about those in real time. Moving on to another key feature when it comes to mitigating the air risk, that is when flying in dark hours. It's difficult to locate your drone, right? So that's how you can turn the beacon on through the FlightBase platform. Beacon is basically a strobe light that is on top of your drone, which when turned on flashes very brightly. And because of that, the operators would be able to see the aircraft even when flying in low light conditions. So, like I said, we are a drone autonomy platform and we take our flight safety very seriously. And hence, we are not afraid to go that extra mile when it comes to it. So just detecting the threat in airspace is not enough. What do we want the operator to do when suddenly a threat has come in the airspace? That's why we developed the go to safe altitude feature. By using that, the operator with just a click of the button can descend the aircraft to a safe altitude and maintain the safety of the operation. To reduce further panic, we have also a dedicated key that is there on the keyboard. The operator can press that immediately, and it basically helps in reducing the cognitive load on the operator. So even after all these safeguards, there is still a possibility that the drone might leave that space, right? And that's why it's extremely important to have those flight termination system in place. So we have partnered with AVSs, we have partnered with Drone AVR to bring in parachute integration for our users. We are working with these manufacturers so that the user may be able to upload the information about the operational volume in these parachutes. Why is that crucial? Well, because the FTS parachute system and the drone have their independent GPS, when the drone reaches the operational volume, the FTS would kick in and the parachute would be deployed. Hence, it would ensure that the drone doesn't go far away from the operational volume. So AVSS is already ASTM compliant, which is required by FAA, and it is also MOC 2511 and 2512 compliant, which is required by EASA. Moving on to the alert and logging system. So Flightbase has a very robust alerting system in which any time when a threat is detected, the operator can get the alerts in real time on the dashboard itself. And there might be scenarios when the operator is not looking directly at the dashboard, right? What if the operator has scheduled some flights? In that case, the operator can configure the alerts to come on their emails. So rest assured, they can even be notified about the bad conditions or critical scenarios when they are not directly looking at the flight-based dashboard. So finally, after all that, it's still important to convince the authorities that our operations are safe, right? That's why Flightbase logs each and every flight that is conducted using the platform. So that hence the operator has a big repository of all the flights that has been conducted, and they can basically submit this repository to their regulatory bodies and prove the safety of their operations. If the operator wants, they can also export the flight logs in the PDF or GUTMA format. If exported in GUTMA format, the operator can basically view them in alternative softwares like drone logbook, air data, etc. So we are working with them to automate this process also, so that even the small manual step is eliminated. Moving on, Flightbase is a drone autonomy platform, and one remote pilot with one drone is not scalable enough, right? Having one pilot to many drones is the goal. And for that, there are three key things that we have to take care of. First is fleet visibility. Second is control of the fleet. And third is ensuring the safety of the fleet. So we have already taken some steps in that direction. So recently Flightbase released a feature known as video wall. In using that, the operator can see all the video feeds of their fleet in one view. They can also see crucial telemetry information like altitude at which the drone is flying or the battery level of the drone. If any of their drone is at any risk due to any underlying factor, they will get immediate notification about it, and the video wall will alert them of which drone is at risk. Moving on to fleet controls. In any emergency scenario, if the operator has to halt their complete operation, the operation of their whole fleet, then they don't have to go to each individual drone and press stop button. We are working towards bringing a complete dashboard in which the operator would be able to control the whole fleet at a single button action. So they'll be able to halt all their operations, they'll be able to ground all drones. And there are many more features that are coming, so stay tuned. In the one-to-many scenario, I talked about three things: visibility, control, and safety. And this is where flight-based system ensures safety of the drones. So we are bringing in features like deconfliction, where the whole fleet is safe when they are conducting an operation. So, for example, if two drones are flying in the air, they'll get real time alerts if they are too close together and are at risk at collision. Or even before flight, we are building in systems in which the operator can see if the flight route is safe or not. So, talking about deconfliction, we are also working towards having UTM integrations. So, with these integrations, the operator would be able to have their flight approvals. They'll be able to see if the plan on which they want the drone to fly is safe or not. They'll be able to see the telemetry of other drones which are flying in that airspace, and they'll be able to get the alerts in real time. So that was all from our side. Because of these features, a lot of our partners have gotten approvals in different nations. So we have got approvals in USA, Japan, Belgium. Recently, one of our partners by the name of Wolf Avionic got the permission in Spain through EASA. And yeah, so thank you for joining. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. And now we are open for any QA.
Wow. Well, that was an incredible discussions and a lot of insights. We covered a lot of things, from the key considerations of the different kind of categories to the features that will help enable all of these the filing process and making everything smoother and easier. Well, okay, now that we have covered all of this, it's time for you to answer all the questions and queries that you have. Let's take a look and see what we have been coming so far. All right, then let's start with this one. I think to a certain extent Sejal covered it, but yeah, we could take a look at it again. Okay, did anyone in Europe gain an operational authorization for BVLOS flight over populated areas after MOC 2511 and 2512 approval of the AVSS PRS, and the risk should be mitigated enough to be able to fly over populated areas? But in my experience, oh, this is more like a description sort of thing. But in my experience, it's not accepted by CAA. What is your advice or experience in BVLOS stop flights over populated areas? I think Judith or Mark, maybe you could take this over.
Yeah. In this case, I have to comment that for this type of operation in populated areas, nowadays we have conducted approvals in Europe, but in sparsely populated areas and in urban areas or populated areas, but those ones that are conducted in a control ground area. Also, another aspect that is important is what I mentioned before. It's to base it first in a specific location. And once you have developed this and get the approval of this, you can continue and apply for the generic one.
Okay,
Thank you,
all right. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, it's okay. So there is actually appreciation. Thank you for the presentations. It's very useful. And the question: do you think there will be new STS and PDRs in the short term?
Yes, thanks for the question, Luis. Actually, I was in a call yesterday with EASA, and they confirmed they're about to publish a new standard scenario by the end of 2025, which is going to be STS 03. And they're going to create a new class, drone class, that's gonna match that scenario. That's something recent news that we got yesterday from EASA, actually. Regarding the PDRAs, we showed you the ones that have been published so far. And EASA has on their website 3 more, which is the PDRA 06, 07, and 08, that are on a draft status. And they are going to be published by next year.
Wow, perfect. That's so great. I think a lot of things are coming ahead for this year. 2025 is going to be amazing. Okay, next up, how does SORA evaluate operational risk and what tools or strategies can be used to mitigate them effectively?
Yeah, we covered this during the presentation. Actually, is what we said. In simple terms, you are proposing to the CAA a flight. During the flight, you may have, incidents or accidents or problems during the flight. SORA, at the end of the road, is a proposal to the CAA to convince them that you have everything in mind, and for each problem that may arise, you've got a concrete solution. So the mitigations, what Judith just said, is what happens if, for example, the drone is in an out of control situation, it is escaping from us in an uncontrolled way, and is about to crash something sensitive. We need a solution for that. What happens if the drone is already falling down and is about to crash with something that is sensitive as well? We want to reduce the risk of the impact. That's another solution of a possible problem that you may have. At the end, this is a risk analysis. And the risk analysis, you have to list all possible failures, all possible problems that you may encounter during your operation, and provide the CAA with possible solutions and trusted solutions so that you bring trust to them and they finally approve your operation. But we covered not all, but some of the most usual mitigations regarding the air risk and the ground risk.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing. Okay, next, I think Sejal, you can take this one. This is for you. What role do tools like geofencing, remote IDs, and detect and avoid systems plays in mitigating SORA requirements?
Hi. Yeah. So, like I mentioned in my presentation, the authorities, flight authorities, especially SORA, requires the operators to define an operational volume. And the operational volume is calculated by a lot, including a lot of factors like what drone you are flying, what is the population area over which you are flying. There are many factors involved. But finally, the operational volume that is defined, the drone should not breach that. And that's where having geofencing comes in place. When you define a geofence, basically the drone would not breach that boundary. And in case it does, we have flight termination systems in place, we have parachutes in place, which can bring the drone down so that the drone doesn't stray far away from operational volume. So having these systems basically expedites the approval process because it gives confidence to regulatory bodies that we have systems in place to counter flyaway incidents. And as for remote ID, so remote ID is basically used when we are having it's basically used by UTM systems and DA systems. So Judith also mentioned in the presentation that having these integrations also helps in getting approval from regulatory bodies.
Perfect. There's this one small question that keeps also popping. Does Flightbase have a support in the United States? Yes, we do have. Don't worry about it. You can just contact us. Our team will be very glad to help you with that. Okay, moving on to the next one. There's one from Klaus. Is there a kill switch, a physical switch button for flight termination included? If not, would it be difficult to get a SORA or PDRA, etc.? Unexpected behaviors of the US within the flight geography. Mark, I think if you want, you can take this up.
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah,
This one.
Here,
Klaus
okay.
Cooper, yeah, right now we're seeing it.
Yeah.
Is there any kill switch for flight termination included? If not, it would be difficult to get a SORA or PDRA, unexpected behavior of the UAS within the flight geography.
Yeah. There have to be a kill switch in order to shut down the flight of the drone for the flight termination system.
One important topic of the FTS that many, now I'm sure we've got many more operators here than manufacturers, but the FTS is something that needs to be external and independent from the drone. Imagine, you want to activate the FTS when you are in an out of control situation. So if your whole drone is in an out of control situation, how are you going to activate the FTS? That's why one of the requirements for the C-class is that these FTS needs to be external and independent.
Okay, understood. I hope that answers your question, Claus. Next one, what standards, example ISO or ASTM, are most relevant for SORA compliance, and who should these be incorporated into the application?
Yeah, mainly you've got the means of compliance with light UAS, the 2512 about M2 parachute, and the means of compliance with light UAS 2511 about flight termination systems.
Perfect. I think that's all. Rest of the questions have been mostly covered in the slides and with the current answers. Okay. Well, now that brings us to the end of this session today. Is there anything else you would like to share, Mark, Judith, or Sejal?
I think, Yushi, there's one question that has been unanswered from Anonymous 1123. Are there any upcoming changes or updates to the SORA framework that drone operators should be aware of? Well, there's a EASA is working on SORA 2.5. And one of the hot topics is how do you determine when it is a concentration of people, when there's a gathering of people? How do you determine where's the limit? Because the same geographical zone, one day you could have a concentration of people, the next day not. Imagine you're flying over an expo. During the days that there's no expo, there's nobody there. During the expo, there's a lot of people. So it's something that is a little bit subjective to date. So there's a lot going on with telco operators, because telco operators, as you know, since everybody of us carry a phone on board, I'm in the pocket. Telco operators can know where, the amount of people on a specific area, and therefore states are creating maps of population density. So from now on, when you're doing a SORA, you're going to be able to check these maps and kind of adequate the ground risk based on these maps.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that, Mark. That was actually very insightful. Okay. Well, I think with that, it brings us to the end of the session. A big thanks to Mark, Judith, and Sejal, and everyone who has tuned in today. I hope after this entire session and discussion, you all are feeling more confident about your SORA approval process and how to get your BVLOS operations up and running without too many hurdles. If in case you still face it, you know who to contact. Well, remember that compliance might feel complex, but with the right approach and with a little bit of help, you can ace it. And just that's all. But before we close, I have some exciting updates for all of you. Since Nation 25, one of the world's largest virtual drone autonomy summit, is just around the corner, and as a token of appreciation and for you being part of today's session, we are giving you all a free early bird passes to Nation 25. Just give me a second. I'll quickly share my screen so that you all can have a look at the scanner. One sec. Yes. Okay, so this is just our way of showing the appreciation for you all to joining us today. Once again, thanks everyone for tuning in. See you all at Nation 25. That's happening on 25th Feb 2025. That's all. Until next time, keep your drone flights safe, keep pushing forward, and most importantly, keep flying. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you, and happy holidays.
Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Just a quick answer to SE Park's question. Yes, there have been examples of integration with Starlink, and we have Flightbase has integrations with Starlink. So we have many customers who use Starlink because of poor LTE coverage. So we'll be happy to take it over. You can contact us, and we'll be happy to talk this out. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. Happy holidays.
And further you have questions, just drop us a comment. We will get back to you. The team will immediately contact you. Bye bye. Happy holidays, everyone.